Good evening and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj has sought a report from India's ambassador to the US after an Indian man was arrested by authorities from an airport in North Dakota over a bomb threat. Paraman Radhakrishnan, a 53-year-old businessman from Gujarat, was taken into custody at the Grand Forks International Airport on Saturday by the police for allegedly making a bomb threat as he told a travel agent that there was an explosive in his bag. He faces charges of terrorism and is being held in a local correctional facility.
And at that time, the decision was made then to evacuate the airport, and the subject was taken into custody. The Grand Forks Regional Bomb Squad also responded out there for some of the luggage that was left unattended by the individual.
Police say the leading theory behind what may have caused the suspect to make these threats is that he became disgruntled with airport staff. But they say regardless of the reason, any threat of this nature at an airport is taken seriously.
Mr. Radhakrishnan's family, of course, says that this is a case of profiling. He's been charged with trying to hatch a terror plot. He told a travel agent that there were explosives in his bag. The government of India says it's doing all that it can. The foreign minister has spoken to the U.S. ambassador, to the Indian ambassador in the U.S., and has sought a report on this case. The police in North Dakota claim that he threatened the travel agent with the presence of a bomb in his bag. He was upset with the staff and he threatened them. He terrorized passengers and the airport staff. Joining me this evening on Spotlight, Shiv Shankar Mukherjee, a former diplomat with me in the studio. We'll also be joined by Dr. Ejaz Ilmi, spokesperson of the BJP. Good evening to both of you. Mr. Mukherjee, to you first. Do you believe this is a case of racial profiling?
Well, from the very, very bare detail I managed to get from, the report just as I came into your studio, the charges are that he, said he had a bomb in his bag, that he was threatening a travel agent or whatever. In case, I have no knowledge of, personal knowledge of the case, but in case that is true, then of course he will be, this is not a case of racial profiling. This is a case of somebody who does something wrong and is then dealt with by the security authorities accordingly. Much will depend on what if he's an Indian citizen, then our embassy will certainly be able to get consular access, and I suppose we'll have to wait for the details. But as of now, it seems to be a case of somebody who's done something wrong and is paying the price for it. But as I said, we don't know the details. I don't know the details.
Right, the details are sketchy. Dr. Ilmi, how is the government looking at this?
Well, the government is very proactive and is trying to reach out and get access to this gentleman, find out exactly what happened. But on a personal note, it seems very unlikely that a businessman traveling on work would do something like this and jeopardize himself, knowing the kind of tensions that prevail and the terror protocols that have followed. So it could be trumped up charges. I mean, one has to wait for it. I won't, I mean, it's too easy to make a comment, but let's wait for the real story to come out as to what really happened.
So let me understand this from you, Mr. Mukherjee. What is the SOP? What is the recourse for an Indian individual who's caught in a situation like this, presuming that he's not guilty, or even if he is? What does he do? He's being held in a correctional facility. This happened on Saturday. This is Tuesday. We are talking Tuesday evening. So that's enough time has passed.
Look, I mean, this is not something new that has happened. Frankly, what happens depends on the country that it's happening in. If it's a country where there is a reasonable rule of law, in which case he will be allowed the protection that the law allows under the fundamental principle that you're innocent until proved guilty, questions of bail, questions if he's a foreign national, of consular access by the embassy concerned, which is ours, our embassy. So in a case like this, in a country like the US, which has a rule of law, the law will take its it is perfectly appropriate for the Indian government to ask for a report on this, but it's, as I said, we really can't say until the facts of the case are made known. It is entirely likely It is likely, not entirely likely, but it is likely that they have a case. If he made threats, if he made this kind of, if there was this kind of behavior, which is certainly then, you know, a felony, and then he'll face the legal consequences. If he's innocent, I'm sure he would have an opportunity. He might have an uncomfortable few days, but he would have an opportunity to prove his innocence. And the fact that the embassy has been asked to have consular access and get the details will naturally impose that kind of, you know, requirement on the basis of the investigating authorities. So he's not helpless, but he has to face the law.
He has to face the law. Dr. Ilmi, the family says that he's being falsely implicated. Has the government reached out to the family? Has Mr. Radhakrishnan had access to anyone in the Indian consulate there?
Well, absolutely. Mr. Radhakrishnan's wife was the one who reached out to the External Affairs Minister, and that's why the embassy was asked to intervene and to find out actually what the situation is. So it's very clear the government has been proactive. But at the same time, while I do agree with Mr. Mukherjee that the rule of law is largely, I mean, in any country, in America per se, even more so, but I really would like to know as to why somebody would like to jeopardize himself, who's on a business trip, and call upon himself to face such an ordeal that he's going through.
Do you want to take that?
Well, as I said, I mean, that's all speculation, really. It could be that he is, you know, that the investigating authorities have overreacted or whatever. I mean, such incidents happen all the time. I worked for 35 years in embassies abroad, and, you know, incidents where somebody is in trouble for some reason, and therefore the facts need to come out, and it's only after that that the government concerned or the embassy concerned can take, can request for appropriate action. So as of now, in the absence of, you know, relevant facts, the rest really is speculation. We have to assume that there were reasons for the arrest, because the man has been arrested, that's a fact. And whether is it racial profiling? Well, there have been many cases of racial profiling by racist immigration officials in Western countries. So we really don't know until the facts come out.
Well, this is a particular case, and I do not want to generalize, but I still want to ask you this. Do you believe the recent moves or actions by the Trump administration compound the challenges for Indians traveling there?
There have been, as I said, there are always cases like these, not just on our nationals, but others as well. But right now, with what President Trump has done recently, the executive orders that he's passed, that does two things. Number one, it tightens the vetting procedure. It encourages all immigration officials to be that much more, not just proactive, but much more enthusiastic about, you know, the security measures that they're supposed to take. Compounding the fact, that's a good word you use, compounding the fact, is that the executive order has been couched in such a way that lawyers across the United States have come out in the open and said it's a totally confusing order which will lead to chaos. Now, I know for a fact, from my professional experience, that the person who really, the passenger faces the last person on the line, which is the immigration official, who I'm absolutely confident will be utterly confused as to what exactly the law asks him to do. He will then take refuge in doing the maximum that he can, because he does not want to be held responsible for any breach of security, number one. Number two, he will be encouraged also by the fact, he is a man who reads the papers, looks at the television, and he knows that the President of the United States and the United States government wants him to get tough. So there's no question of his using his mind, you know, investigating properly, benefit of the doubt, and so on. All that is not going to happen. So yes, what President Trump has done is certainly going to lead to more frequent such incidents. There's no doubt about that.
Dr. Ilmi, as the government of India takes this up at whatever level with the US, it's incidental that this case has come to light at a time when they're looking at the curb on H-1B visas, And as Mr. Mukherjee said, that there may be potentially more problems for Indians traveling to the US. At what scale is the government expected to pursue this matter?
Well, obviously, there is no case of any interference in what the USA or any other country does. But obviously, if it impacts Indians in the way it's going to do, even on H-1B visas, I mean, these matters need to be taken up at the highest level. Secondly, what Mr. Mukherjee just spoke about, this executive order by President Trump, it's going to lead to a lot of paranoia. And yes, despite all protocols and all training, everything can go out of the window if the immigration officer wants to actually get tough and make life difficult. So we just hope that a lot many Indians do not get trapped or get involved in such scenarios and their families have to suffer. One can only hope for the best, and on a case-to-case basis, the government is going to stand by every Indian citizen who faces such situations, depending on what the case may be. If the businessman concerned was actually committing a felony, then that's a different story. But there is a judicial process, and that process has to be supported by the government or for every Indian citizen.
So this is a case that is unfolding in the US. It is going to be tried according to the American law. How much leverage does the government of India or the Indian representative in the US have in a matter like this?
It's not a question of leverage. It's a question of consular access. The Indian embassy, in a reasonably organized state like the United States, will be given consular access, which means that an officer of the embassy will be able to ascertain what exactly are the charges, what has he been charged with. After that, depending on what the facts are, the embassy will either make out a case that it's wrongful arrest, and therefore, through the State Department of the United States, will ask for remedial action. Otherwise, the Indian embassy will report to our Ministry of External Affairs, and the law will take its course over there. The fact that the family is concerned about this deserves our sympathy, but that's about all.
But there have been cases of profiling with some of the
yes,
most
but
popular
as I said,
stars
we don't know
India.
about this particular case. There have been many cases of racial profiling, including security checks that have been imposed on the President of India, like Mr. Abdul Kalam. Our ambassador in the United States was harassed at airports. These are cases after, it's a world where air travel and security measures have really, I'll use the word, gone berserk after 9/11, and with international terrorism being what it is. So such incidents are very common. I'm sure every Indian who travels abroad, who has friends who travel abroad, either have suffered or know people who have suffered such consequences at airports.
Right. As a representative of the ruling party, Dr. Ilmi, and we do not want to speculate, if Mr. Radhakrishnan's family is watching this broadcast, what is your message for them, sir?
Well, I would say they must have faith in the rule of law, and that the government of India will do what it can do, get the access and look at ask for a report. And if the government of India in the report feels that there is a case for remedial action and to join issues and provide all the support, then absolutely the government of India will do that. And we have a very proactive External Affairs Minister who's always out there for all people who need the support and the help. So I'm sure, and since the country is watching something like this, and we hope that we can only hope he's innocent. Only the rule of law can establish that. But the government of India stands by the family entirely.
All right. I'm going to thank you both, Mr. Mukherjee.